With the arrival of the invisible Covid virus, God or his self-processed representatives on earth have been forced to shut down all religious ceremonies. In my childhood, we were given holy water as a panacea for all kinds of diseases. But now I hear that holy water ponds, an ubiquitous and essential ornament of all churches, are to be kept dry to prevent the spread of the dreaded disease through the holy water. In India, prasadams distributed after poojas are also to be prohibited. There are many godmen and women in India who are revered as almighties, but they have now been forced to stop hugging devotees and offering consecrated food or drinks. To add insult to injury, the Almighty has ordered his representatives to keep away from churches even on Ash Wednesday. Devotees have been ordered to hear Mass on the internet. Devotees have been taught from childhood that God speaks through priests and their hierarchies. But Kovid has driven a huge wedge into the association between gods and priests. Consequently, God speaks to the devotees through the priests, who in turn have to depend on the mass media to pass on the divine orders and statements. The Almighty has programmed billions of trillions of data into our genes to make our life on earth possible as humans. In contrast, all Bibles and Qurans and other scriptures of the world put together would not make up even a gigabyte of data. Consequently, is it not far easier for the Almighty to program all biblical and other scriptural data into our genes, instead of depending on divine representatives who only confuse things with their contradictory dogmas? After all the scare of the coronavirus is over and things return to normal, devotees will return to their superstitions and praise God for saving them from the virus. In the process, they will ignore the massive global resources put into contain the virus by human beings. Ask any devotee what he or she would do if he or she were bitten by a snake or a dog on the way to the church or mosque or a temple. The answer would always be that they would seek professional scientific remedies for the snake bite or the dog bite. But once they are sure once they escape the snake venom or the rabies, they thank God for the cure, ignore the huge amount of research put in by scientists and doctors to produce anti-venom or anti-rabies vaccinations. During the world wars, enemies pray to the same God before setting out to battle, and once the battle is over, those who win thank their God for the victory, and those who lose the fight thank the same God for minimizing their losses and casualties. In short, God wins, whatever be the outcome in a crisis such as a war or an epidemic or any natural disasters. During the 2006 tsunami, about 2,000 people were washed out to sea from the beaches of a pilgrim center called Velangani in South India. This pilgrim center is dedicated to Mary, who is supposed to have saved 3 Portuguese sailors who were shipwrecked off this Velangani coast in the last century. But the same Mary was not able to save the thousands of people right under her nose on the beach when the tsunami came calling. Thousands have perished from the stampede during the pilgrimage to Mecca. These stampedes and casualties would not have taken place if the pilgrims really believed that Allah is all Aziz, the omnipotent, or Al-Karim, the merciful. It is much the same at all pilgrimages. irrespective of religions or the denominations or their gods. Devotees brag all the time about their belief in heaven, but they seem to be in no hurry to get there. Consequently, they resort to all kinds of professional medicines as well as quackery and black magic to put off their much awaited trip to the hereafter. Many popes were kept alive on professional medicines, though it would have been far more rational for them to embrace the death and reach heaven as early as possible if they really believed in what they preach. An example would be Pope John Paul II, who suffered from acute Parkinson's disease and vegetated for many years. Emperor Ashoka of India, who lived some 300 years or so before Jesus, starved himself to death when he saw that his end was near. The Jain saints of India still practice this way to end their life on earth. If they can do it, why cannot the popes and priests do the same and set an example to the devotees by stopping medicines and nourishments for an early entry and then get an early entry to heaven? If actions speak louder than words, then it is obvious that no divine representatives or devotees really believe in what they preach, especially about the hereafter. It was Epicurus, the Greek philosopher, who exposed religions and their gods for what they are with the following questions, which were put some 300 years before Jesus. Is God willing to prevent evil but not able? Then he is not omnipotent. Is he able but not willing? Then he is malevolent. Is he both able and willing? Then whence cometh evil? Is he neither able nor willing? Then why call him God? These passages from Epicurus on the helplessness of an almighty God against a not so almighty evil remains unanswered even after 2300 years by priests, even as they find all kinds of apologetics for their cock and bull stories. Darwin's cousin Francis Galton was one of the first to conduct a systematic study on the efficacy of prayer. He reasoned that since it was the English royal family members who received more prayers than any other Englishman, they would be the healthiest of all Englishmen. By the same token, the Pope would be far more healthy than anyone on earth, since more devotees pray or more people pray for the Pope than for anyone else on earth. However, neither the Pope nor any members of the royal family are any healthier than any ordinary man or woman who are not even prayed for. Nor are they any healthier than any atheist who do not bother about God. Galton also divided up a large field into many plots and planted them with the same kind of plants. They were then given identical treatments of water, fertilizers, insecticides and other inputs. He then chose plots at random, and some of them were prayed for, while others were not prayed for. Came harvest time, and he found no difference in yields between plots which were prayed for and plots which received no special praise whatsoever. Many similar tests have been conducted on the efficacy of prayer, and all of them without exception prove that prayers are no more effective than any black magic or placebo for solving life's problems. In spite of the mountains of evidence which prove that prayers are ineffective, why do so many devotees resort to prayers? This leads us to other questions such as why do people resort to quackery, black magic, astrology and other practices even though they are all futile? One of the reasons for resorting to prayers is that prayers cost almost nothing compared to other solutions which are very costly. In fact, free advices might be the only thing that can compare with prayer when it comes to cost of solving our daily problems. We have a temple some 70 kilometers away from my home where an ancient mother goddess called Kodunallur Amma or Kodunallur Mother is enshrined. She comes to Estras once in a year, and the way to gain her favors is to sing obscene or bawdy rhymes. Devotees, both male and female, of other gods and goddesses might scoff at this practice of singing bawdy rhymes. But on deeper analysis, all religious practices are as irrational and meaningless as singing bawdy rhymes. There is a story of the old woman in the church who first kissed a picture of a Saint George and then kissed the picture of the devil or the dragon underneath the horse. When asked why she kissed both the devil and the saint, she replied that she wanted the devil on her side in case God condemned her to hell. This kind of behavior, part of devotees, is well explained by Blaise Pascal, who argued that a rational person would live as though God exists and seek to believe in God. If God does not really exist, such a person will have only a finite loss or very limited loss in time and resources spent on prayers and other religious activities. On the other hand, he stands to receive infinite gains such as heaven and avoid infinite loss such as hell if he plays up to the God and his priests. The flip side of this wager is that there have been millions of gods worshipped from the beginning of time, with many of them mutually incompatible as the God of the Christianity and the God of Islam, both of which cannot be accepted by the same person. In fact, according to the claims put forward by the different religions and their denominations, it is far more dangerous to play up to the wrong God than believe in no God. Religion is a total waste of time and resources, and the only ones to benefit from the deal are not the gods nor the devotees, but only the priests. This was recognized by the Charvaka atheists of India, who lived as far back as 600 BCE, long before any of today's religions were founded. They declared religions to be incoherent rhapsodies or mere mumbo-jumbo, which had the only usefulness was to provide livelihood to the priests. I do not know who first said that prostitution is the oldest profession in the world. Nothing could be farther from the truth. Prostitution is the flip side of marriage, and marriage itself was a byproduct of the institution of private properties, which forms the foundation of agricultural and industrial societies. So marriage as well as prostitution were instituted hardly 10,000 to 15,000 years ago after the Stone Age man turned to agriculture. But long before that, probably over 50,000 years ago, there were shamans and witch doctors who combined the roles of priests and doctors. Later on, as humans turned to a more rational way of life, the profession of the witch doctor bifurcated into the roles of the priests and the doctors. Of these, the doctors turned professional and are really of much use to the society. Had it not been for the medical profession, most of us would not have been alive today. In contrast, the priests carry on as parasites, living off the fears and superstitions of their victims. These priests perhaps form the oldest profession on earth, and they live comfortable predatory lives, fleecing their victims and raping their women and boys. But for their regal apparel, today's popes and bishops are nothing but shamans and witch doctors of old, who danced naked to the tune of primordial drums and intoxicating drugs. Now we have these blood-sucking parasites. How have these blood-sucking parasites succeeded in deluding their devotees for so many tens of thousands of years? It is superficial fear, and fear alone of the dire consequences of crossing the gods and their representatives on earth, that keep the devout victims from asking too many questions and thinking their own thoughts. Women are far more prone to the manipulations of these bloodsuckers and the fear instilled by these priests. This may be because of the higher degree of insecurity that women feel, that women outnumber men in all places of worships in pilgrim centers and as well as in pilgrim centers. And these women still instill all their superstitious fear into their children at an impressionable age, when the children are not in a position to separate the chaff from the corn. This is akin to an inheritable disease, but far more deadly than any disease. Catching them young is the secret to the phenomenal success of these divine parasites called priests. Now, with the coronavirus, there is a possibility, however remote, of breaking the 50,000 and more years of a stranglehold the priests have on their victims. Let us all hope for the best. I am from India and I have my limitations with English, which is an acquired language as far as I am concerned. So any defect or shortcoming on that account may please be overlooked. Thank you once again.